Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you guys stopping by. This is the final video for Elvis Week. I wanted to make a video talking about the movie itself. I took my mom on Friday to go see the movie, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about the things that I learned about Elvis. Before this week, I knew very little about him. So on Monday, I started Elvis Week, where I wanted to watch one of his videos each day and do a reaction to it, just to kind of learn a little bit more about him before this movie came out. So if you guys haven't seen any of the other videos for Elvis Week, I recommend going back a little bit and checking those out. Now, before I get into any of the details about the movie, I don't want to give any spoiler alerts. I'm gonna try not to give too many, details about the movie. I just want to talk about Elvis himself and his upbringing and different things that I learned about him. So if you guys want to go see the movie and don't want to hear anything about it, I recommend turning it off right now. Turn this video off. But if you're still watching, let's get into it. So the movie itself, it's his biopic. So it starts from the beginning to the end of his life, and it tells pretty much every detail in between. What fascinated me the most about his younger days, he was born, I think, in Alabama, but they moved to Memphis, Tennessee. His dad had got placed in jail, and the only place that his mom could afford was a black neighborhood in Memphis. That right there, to me, kind of defined how he got so much of his characteristics and the swag to his music, his confidence, all that stuff, because it shows a lot of different scenes, different settings that he would get himself into that would kind of mold him into what he enjoyed in life and the path that he took when it came to music. So I'll give you an example. In his early years, like his early teenage years, he and some of his friends were out messing around and stumbled into a church group, and they were singing, and he just fell in love with the music. And you could hear it was a specific lady who was singing, and I can't remember her name, but I'm pretty sure was like very well known in that area of Memphis and in the South. And she had a very distinct voice while she was singing. And there's song, I think it's actually this performance right here when he starts out and he has a super raspy voice. To me, it was like, wow, that's exactly where he very first heard this style of singing, and he brought it into himself and used it and mastered it. So there were a lot of different examples like that, to where it showed there were different people, different musicians that Elvis would hang around, and it seemed like he kind of just picked bits and pieces of their craft and put them all together, and that's how he became who he was. Because he grew up in a black neighborhood, but a lot of the famous musicians at the time were white. So to me, I could definitely see where he would get like his different, just his swag, just the energy about him, you could tell wasn't the norm when it came to the white community or the mainstream artists and music from that time. He would take the soul, like the R&B, or not the R&B, but the jazz and the soul from his neighborhood, the people that he grew up around, the musicians that he would hear just down the street as he's walking around. He would take that type of rhythm and put it into a different genre of music. And at that time, it was unimaginable. It was wild. It's so crazy to me to see these things in the movie. There were different headlines, like after he started, gaining some traction, and people were recognizing him all throughout the South and the US and eventually all over the world. But in the US, they hated the people loved him. The people loved Elvis, but the uptight, the people that don't like any type of change, the government, the law, all those people, they hated it because there were quotes in some of the articles that they showed. One of them was and I quote, "white boy with black boy hips," which this was 1957, and it was shocking to me that that's what they would, or how they would put the headlines for when there was a story about Elvis in the newspaper. They wanted to arrest him for the way that he would perform his music, which is, I don't understand. I like that train of thought back then in the 50s and 60s was unreal to me. There was another headline that stood out to me. It was in 1956 as well, and it said when they were trying to arrest him, they wanted to charge him for crimes of lust and perversion. I didn't know that lust and perversion were illegal. I mean, I guess perversion is illegal in some senses, but for him to perform music on stage was perverted. And it was all because of the different moves that he would do. Back then, the artists, they would just stand at the mic, and they'd sing their song, and it would all be all fine and dandy. But he had moves, and he would shake his hips. And the word that stood out to me most throughout this movie that they would use against Elvis in his performances was gyrating. That was what he would do with his hips, his hands, whatever. I don't know what. Gyrating was so against the norm for performances, for everything, and people, they hated it. It was in the movie, it looked more so as if the men hated it. Obviously the women loved it, and those are the ones who were crying and fainting and screaming every time he'd get on stage. But the men were insecure or didn't want they just weren't ready for this type of music or this type of performance back then. And in the movie it showed, which I thought was really cool, that Elvis was very good friends with B.B. King. They both grew up in Memphis, and you can see how much of an influence B.B. King's music had on Elvis growing up and even into his adulthood. And it really puts into perspective the times, like the different events that were going on during this time. Like, he was really good friends with B.B. King. He was there when Little Richard was being discovered. But him growing up in Memphis, it showed, like, Elvis was already big at the time, and it showed how much of an effect the assassination of Martin Luther King had on him. One of the Kennedys was killed during that time when he's going through all this stuff with his promoter, which is a whole different thing. If you guys, I should have said this earlier, the movie was amazing. I absolutely loved the movie. It lived up to every expectation I've had. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend going to see it. It really shows how his promoter, his almost more so like his manager, was slimy. Like, he did a lot for him. He got him into, show business and really elevated him to the next level. But there were ulterior motives, most definitely. I don't want to give off too much information. I don't want to ruin it for anybody. The promoter, which in like a lot of cases, he was slimy. He used Elvis and really he took Elvis's career to a new unimaginable level, but at the same time he held him back from becoming even larger than what he was. And there's so many details that go into it. I don't want to give off too much. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I highly recommend going to see it, but I just wanted to make this video for you guys to let you know what I thought of the Elvis movie after watching, several of his videos throughout the week. I definitely will be doing more Elvis reactions to different songs that I haven't seen yet. So you guys be on the lookout for that. But again, the movie, amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love it. My mom loved it. I recommend that all you guys go see it. And if you guys haven't seen any of my previous videos from Elvis Week, I recommend going back and checking those out. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but I just wanted to make a video to let you guys know how much I actually loved the movie and doing Elvis Week and seeing some of his older videos and performances. So you guys jump in the comments and let me know if you have seen the movie or if you plan on seeing the movie, what other videos or performances of his I need to check out. Make sure you guys say all that in the comments for me, please. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that button before you leave. All right, I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.